David Ricks, I want to talk about where you are now with COVID. There's some sensitivities here with the antibodies and that. When you're meeting with your head of research and science, Daniel Skavronsky, as well, when you look back at the last 18 months on COVID and you look forward to the next 18 months with this horrific pandemic, what have you learned and what's the to-do right now for Eli Lilly in this horrific pandemic?
Yeah, Tom, thanks for having me on. And Dan's a key partner for us. And as a science-driven company, you know, those meetings happen a lot, as we were talking offline. COVID, we've had a lot of ups and downs with COVID. You know, last year, we had a lot of unknowns about how this would progress. And we set to work to create therapies, because that's what we do. We're not a vaccine company, that could be helpful. And we did that. I think we're very proud of that. We launched neutralizing antibodies, both a single and then a combo. We also have developed one of our anti-inflammatory medications, Olumiant or baricitinib, which actually today we read out results that in those on ventilation or ECMO, the most advanced patients in the hospital, reduced death by over 40%. But we just wanted to, put our tools to work to be helpful. You know, our ongoing business is about treating other diseases. We're not a virology company. And so as the pandemic has ebbed and waned, those businesses have come back strongly as treatment for diabetes and cancer has improved once doctors' offices open. We don't think about ourselves as a COVID company, but we were happy to make a big contribution. And this year, that ended up in a fair amount of sales. Although in the second half, you mentioned the guidance being narrowed on the year. That's really about reducing COVID-related antibody sales and increasing the performance of our underlying business. We do expect that as these waves happen, they'll begin to subside. Each one will be lower, and a new sense of normalcy will set in. Right now, we have a problem in the U.S., but we think there's a way to fix it. Get everyone vaccinated.
Dave Ricks, tell me about Alzheimer's. The absolute uproar in Washington about the need for a solution, the whole FDA thing. I get that, fine. You guys going back to insulin get these horrific diseases correct. What are you going to do to help our listeners and viewers with Alzheimer's?
Yeah, thanks. This is an area that's very personal to many of us at Lilly, and our scientists have been working for over 30 years to try to create a medicine that could slow the progression of this disease. You may know this, but it's the 6th leading killer. It's a fatal disease, and it's the only one in the top 10 without a medication that slows it down. Recently, the FDA shifted their policy. They said, look, showing an ultimate benefit in a slow-moving, difficult disease that we don't fully understand has been hard to approve drugs on, but they moved the line.
Excuse me for interrupting. This is really important, Mr. Ricks. Do you support that shift in FDA policy?
So, look, the regulator needs to make that decision about risk and benefit. But, of course, we believe that amyloid reduction leads to slowing of the disease. We've been betting on that for some time and put billions behind it in research. And now we have a leading product in that area, donanemab, which had the first ever clinical trial in humans read out positive in Q1.
Dave.
So we have launched a bigger study, and we said in Q2, we're planning to submit this year under that new policy. And we think patients deserve access to that medication, but we're going to prove its worth just in the following year. We have a huge study going on that we just said is almost enrolled and will prove that benefit.
Dave, the Biogen drug was incredibly controversial when it came out, in large part because of its price, in addition to the FDA policy, which did seem controversial even within the FDA panel. How do you plan to be different with your Alzheimer's drug in terms of the controversy, in terms of the pushback, and frankly, in terms of the price point?
Well, we're not going to announce the pricing today, but I'll just point out, I mean, we tend to compete aggressively in all the markets we're in, and that benefits patients. And we compete by creating better molecules, better medicines themselves with different properties. In this case, our medicine works very rapidly to clear plaques. By 1 year, almost the vast majority of patients in our study no longer needed to take the drug. They had cleared all the plaque in their brain. That's different from all the other antibodies being studied, which are really lifetime therapies. Secondly, we compete on data, and this is important here, and I think the source of the controversy. Few argue that the approved drug might have worth. I think the big argument is, did they prove they had worth? Did it really affect the disease? Of course, we are committed to complete the study that's now basically enrolled. We'll finish enrollment this quarter.
Yeah.
And we'll have that data in 23, which is pretty short period of time in the trajectory of drug development. And finally, we will compete on value in the marketplace. And when we hopefully get our approval sometime next year, we'll talk about our pricing strategy.
Dave, just quickly, a minute on the clock. Are you requiring your employees to be vaccinated?
Not at this time. We're not. We believe we have very high rates of vaccination in our population, but we're tracking that issue very closely. And of course, new information just released in the U.S. about the transmissibility of the Delta variant from those that are actually vaccinated is of concern. We're analyzing that as we look at our policy. To date, we've had very few, if not zero, in many of our facilities transmission of the disease.
Yeah.
And so it hasn't been a real problem for us in running our business, but we want to look at that and stay abreast of the latest information.